Today, we're diving into one of the most essential verbs in the entire Italian language, essere, which is, of course, the verb to be. Honestly, getting this one right is your first huge step towards speaking real, authentic Italian.
But let's kick things off with a little puzzle. You see two questions here, tu sei inglese and lei è inglese. Now they both mean are you English, but you absolutely cannot use them interchangeably. Knowing which one to pick is so key to speaking Italian correctly and respectfully. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly which one to use and why.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basic forms of essere. Then we'll solve that tu versus lei puzzle. After that, we'll see the verb in action, I'll give you a pro tip to make you sound way more like a native, and then we'll wrap it all up with a quick summary.
All right, first things first, the building blocks. Before we can start putting sentences together, we've got to know the basic forms of essere. Think of these as the fundamental tools for everything we're going to do next.
Let's begin with the singular forms. These are the ones you'll use when you're just talking about one person.
So, for I, it's io sono. For the informal you, it's tu sei. And for he or she, it's lui, lei, è. And hey, notice that little accent on the è? It might look small, but it's super important for how you say it and what it means.
Okay, now for the plural forms. These are for when you're talking about more than one person.
For we are, you've got noi siamo. For you all are, it's voi siete. And for they are, it's loro sono. Now wait a second. Did you spot that? Sono is used for both I am and they are. Don't let that throw you off, though. The context of the sentence will always make it perfectly clear which one you mean.
And this brings us right back to that question from the beginning. See, Italian has this really beautiful built-in system of respect, and it literally changes how you speak to someone. It all boils down to this choice between tu and lei.
You know, the rule is actually pretty simple. You use the informal, tu sei, with your friends, your family, basically anyone you're on a first-name basis with. But if you want to show respect to an adult you don't know, an elder, or in any kind of formal situation, you have to use the polite form, lei. But hang on a minute. You're probably looking at that slide and thinking, isn't lei the word for she? So why in the world would you use it to formally say you to a guy named Victor? It's a fantastic question.
And here's the logic behind it, which is actually fascinating. When you use this formal way of speaking, it's like you're not talking to the person directly. Instead, you're addressing the idea of them as a very important person. And in Italian, that's una persona molto importante. Because the word persona is grammatically feminine, you use the third-person feminine form, lei, as the absolute highest sign of respect. How cool is that?
Okay, so that makes sense for talking to one person, but what happens when you need to formally talk to a whole group of people? Does it get even more complicated?
Actually, no. It gets way easier. You just use voi siete. That's it. When you're talking to more than one person, there's no formal or informal distinction at all. So whether you're talking to your best friends or a boardroom full of executives, it's always going to be voi siete. Simple as that.
All right, so we've got all the forms down. Now let's actually put them to work and see how essere shows up in everyday conversations.
Just like in English, you're going to use essere for three main jobs. First, for identity, to say who someone is, like Victor è avvocato. Second, for description, to say what someone is like io sono modesto. And third, for location, to say where something is, like l'albergo è in centro.
So what if you want to say something is not true? Well, this couldn't be any easier. You just take your sentence, find the verb, and pop the word non directly in front of it. So Victor è inglese becomes Victor non è inglese. That's it. That rule works for every single form every single time.
All right, we've nailed the essentials. Now it's time for a little trick, a pro tip that will immediately make you sound less like you're reading from a textbook and much more like a native Italian speaker.
So here's the secret. In everyday Italian, you almost never say the pronoun. Why not? Well, because as we've already seen, each verb form, sono, sei, è, is unique. The verb itself already tells you who is speaking. So Italians just drop the pronoun. Instead of saying io sono italiano, you just say sono italiano.
Now, that doesn't mean using the pronoun is wrong, but it totally changes the meaning. When you use the pronoun, you're adding emphasis. So if you say, io sono italiano, it sounds like you're stressing that I specifically am Italian, maybe because someone else isn't. For just regular, everyday conversation, leaving it out is the most natural way to go.
Whew. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here, from the basic verb forms all the way to the little details of formal speech. Let's just lock all that in and do a quick recap of the most important takeaways from all this.
So if you only take away 5 things today, make it these. Number 1, essere is your verb to be. 2, use tu for informal situations and lei for formal respect. 3, the plural you, voi, never changes. 4, making a sentence negative is easy, just add non before the verb. And 5, to sound natural, drop that pronoun.
And you know, this is why this all matters so much. Mastering a verb like essere isn't just some grammar exercise. It's the key that unlocks the door to having real, genuine conversations in Italian. So after all this, the only question left is the one right there on the screen. Are you ready to speak?